Chapter 5 Trouble with Penguins. The next day was quite eventful at 432 Pound-Foot Avenue. First there was the serviceman, and then the policeman, and then the trouble about the license. Captain Cook was in the children's room, watching Janie and Bill put together a jigsaw puzzle on the floor. He was very good about not disturbing the pieces after Bill had spanked him once for eating one. He did not hear the refrigerator serviceman come to the back door. Mrs. Popper had gone marketing for canned shrimps for the Penguin, so that Mr. Popper was alone in the kitchen to explain to the serviceman what he wanted done to the refrigerator. The serviceman put his tool bag down on the kitchen floor, looked at the refrigerator, and then looked at Mr. Popper, who, to tell the truth, had not shaved yet and was not very tidy. "Mister, you don't need no ventilating holes in there. There is a door. It's my ice box. I want some holes bored in the door," said Mr. Popper. They argued about it for quite a while. Mr. Popper knew that to get this serviceman to do what he wanted, all he had to do was to explain that he was going to keep a live penguin in the icebox, that he wanted his pet to have plenty of fresh air, even though the door was closed all night. He felt a little stubborn about explaining how. However, he didn't want to discuss Captain Cook with this unsympathetic serviceman, who was already staring at Mr. Popper as if Mr. Popper was not quite right on his head. "Come on, and do what I said, Mr. Popper. I'm paying you for it." "With what?" Mr. Popper gave him a $5 bill. It made him a little sad to think how many beans it would have bought for Mr. Popper and the children. The serviceman examined the bill carefully if he didn't trust Mr. Popper too much. But at last he put it in his pocket, took a drill from his tool bag, and made 5 small holes in a neat pattern on the refrigerator door. "Now," said Mr. Popper, "don't get up. Wait a minute. There's one more thing." "Now what?" said the serviceman. "Now I suppose you want me to take the door off its hinges to let in a little more air? Or do you want me to make a radio set out of your icebox?" "Don't get funny," said Mr. Popper in dignity. "That's no way to talk. Believe it or not, I know what I'm doing. I mean, having to do. I want you to fix an extra handle to the inside of that box so it can be opened from the inside of the box." "That is a fine idea. You want an extra handle on the inside. Sure, sure." He picked up his tool bag. "Aren't you going to do it for me?" asked Mrs. Popper. "Oh, sure, sure," the serviceman edging towards the back door. Mr. Popper saw that for all his words of agreement, the serviceman had no intention of putting on an inside handle. "I thought you were a serviceman," he said. "I am. That's the first sensible thing you've said yet. You're a fine kind of serviceman if you don't even know how to put an extra door handle on the inside of an icebox door." "Oh, I don't? I don't think I don't know how. As far as it goes, I even got a spare handle in my tool bag and plenty of screws. You needn't think I don't know how to do it. If you wanted to." Mr. Popper silently reached in his pocket and gave the serviceman his last $5 bill. He was pretty sure that Mrs. Popper would be annoyed at him for spending all that money, but he could not be helped. "Mister," said the serviceman, "you win. I'll fix you an extra handle. And while I'm going at it, you sit down on your chair over there, facing me, where I can keep an eye on you." "Fair enough, said Mr. Popper, sitting down. The serviceman was still on the floor, putting in the final screws that held the new handle in place, when the penguin came out of the kitchen on his silent pink feet. Surprised at seeing the strange man on the floor, Captain Cook quietly walked over and began to peck him curiously, but the serviceman was even more surprised than Captain Cook. "Work?" said the penguin, or perhaps it was the serviceman. Mr. Popper was not sure what had happened when he picked himself up the chair a moment later. There had been a shower of flying tools, a violent slamming of the door, and the serviceman was gone. These sudden noises, of course, brought the children running. Mr. Popper showed them how the refrigerator was now remodeled for the penguin. He showed Captain Cook, too, by shutting him inside. The penguin at once noticed the shiny new inside handle and bit it with curiosity. The door opened, and Captain Cook jumped out. Mr. Popper promptly put Captain Cook back inside the door and shut it again, to be sure the penguin learned his lesson. Before long, Captain Cook became quite skillful at getting out when he was ready to be taught how to get put back inside the door when the inside door was shut. By the time the policeman came to the back door, Captain Cook was going in and out the refrigerator as easy as if he lived in one all his life. "Mama says Papa's hair looks like a lion's sometimes." "Keep it still, Bill," said Janie. "The policeman doesn't care how Papa's hair looks." The policeman now scratched his chin. If it's only a bird, I suppose it will be okay for you to keep him in a cage. We keep him in the icebox. You can put him in the icebox for all I care, said the policeman. What kind of bird did you say it was? A penguin, answered Mr. Popper. And by the way, I might want to take him walking with me. Would it be all right if I keep him on a leash? I tell you, honestly, I don't know what the municipal ordinance about penguins is, or without a leash, on public streets. I'll ask my sergeant. Maybe I ought to get a license for him, said Mr. Popper. It's certainly big enough for a license, said the policeman. I tell you what. I'll tell you what to do with it. You can call up the city hall and ask what is the ruling about a penguin is. And good luck to you, Popper. He's kind of a cute little fellow that looks almost human. Good day to you, Popper, and good day to you, Mr. Penguin. Then Mr. Popper telephoned the city hall to see about the license for Captain Cook. The penguin did his best to disconnect the telephone by biting the green cord. Perhaps he thought it was some kind of eel. But just as Mrs. Popper came back from the market and opened the can of shrimps, so that Mr. Popper was soon left alone at the telephone. Even so, he found it not easy to learn whether or not he must get a license for his strange pet. Every time he would explain what he wanted, he would be told to wait a minute, and much later a new voice would ask him what he wanted. This went on for a considerable time. At least the new voice seemed a little interested in this case. Pleased with his friendly voice, Mr. Popper began again to tell about Captain Cook. Is he an army captain, a police captain, or a navy captain? He is not. He's Mr. Popper, said Mr. Popper. He's a penguin. Will you repeat that, please? Said the voice. Mr. Popper repeated it. The voice suggested that perhaps he better spell it. Penguin, said Mr. Popper. Penguin. Oh, said the voice. You mean that Captain Cook's first name is Benjamin? Not Benjamin, Penguin. Not Benjamin, Penguin. It's a bird, said Mr. Popper. Do, do you mean, said the phone in his ear, that Captain Cook wishes a license to shoot birds? I'm sorry, bird hunting season does not open till November, and please try and speak a little more distinctly, Mr. Topper. Did you say your name was? My name is Popper, not Topper, shouted Mr. Popper. Yes, Mr. Potter. Now I can hear you quite clearly. Then listen, roared Mr. Popper, now completely outraged. If you folks at the city hall don't even know what penguins are, I guess you don't have any saying about how they have to be licensed. I will do without a license for Captain Cook. Wait a minute, Mr. Popwell. Our Mr. Treadbottom of the Bureau of Navigation of Lakes, Rivers, and Ponds and Stream has just come in. I will let you speak with him personally. Perhaps he knows this Benjamin Cook of yours. In a moment, the new voice was speaking to Mr. Popper. Good morning. This is the Automobile License Bureau. Do you have the same car as last year? If so, what's the license number? Mr. Popper had been switched over to the county building. He decided to hang up.